I should have come earlier in the day." Jack took his hands out of his leather jacket pockets and rubbed them together. The towering abandoned apartment building was shrouded in shadows at that late hour, and it was impossible to see through the windows on the 6th floor. He turned to look at the building across the street. Hutchison and Proud, attorneys at law. The noble name belied a fundamentally seedy business that barely scraped by in the slummy downtown suburb. But his girlfriend, Cammy, worked there as a secretary. Jack turned back to the abandoned apartments. The front door was boarded over. He knew there would be other ways to get in, broken windows and ledges and doors without locks. But the thin plywood was rotting from age and had fractured with a solid kick. It felt good to break something. Cammy had been upset for weeks about what she saw through the 6th floor windows, and her constant crying had built a tension in Jack that could only be solved through violence. Inside, the foyer was full of dust and long abandoned cobwebs. A scrabbling sound came through one of the gaping black doorways. A rat, probably. Jack rubbed the back of his hand across his nose and glowered at the dark area. The building had been vacant for more than 10 years. It was in such bad disrepair that Cammy claimed it would be cheaper to knock it down and build a new building than to renovate it. But the downtown suburb already had too much housing for its dwindling population. Whoever owned the apartments must have given them up as a lost cause. Broken glass, tiles and dusty plaster coated the staircase and scraped under Jack's shoes as he climbed. His footsteps rang through the space, echoing eerily back at him from a dozen directions, and blending in with his laboured breathing. He'd been unemployed too long, he decided. The flab from too many beers and days spent in front of the television was setting in, and his heart had to work harder to lift him up the stairwell. He repeated Cammy's words under his breath as he counted the floors. "In the window, opposite my office." That would mean the 6th floor, near the building's corner. "He just stands there and stares at me all day." "He won't after this." Jack squeezed his fingers into fists. He would teach the creep a lesson. It didn't matter if it was a drugged-out hobo, a runaway teen, or just a run-of-the-mill pervert. If they didn't swear to stay away from the window, he'd tip them over the sill and let them smack into the concrete sidewalk. The police wouldn't care. Deaths were common in the area, and unless they were blatant murders or easy to solve, they were mostly swept under the rug. The stairwell opened onto the 6th floor, and Jack paused to catch his breath. The empty hallway stretched ahead of him, sad and decaying. Half the rooms were missing doors, and one dying sunlight came through them. The whole area smelt of urine, rot, and sickening organic decay. He sniffed, rubbed his nose again, and then set out down the hallway, counting the rooms as he passed them. It'll be one of the windows furthest along, 2nd or 3rd from the corner room probably. That would look directly out at Cammy's window. He peered into each room. A couple still held furniture, although they were so badly damaged they would be worthless. Rat droppings were thick on the ground. One room showed signs of being lived in within the last few years, but dust clung to the mattress, suggesting the owner had moved on some time ago. At last, in the hallway's second-last room, Jack found he was no longer alone. A figure, tall and thin, was silhouetted against the light. Standing at the window, he stared out at the street below. Jack's heart raced, but he drew in a breath to spread his chest. He placed a hand on either side of the doorway, blocking the stranger's escape, and bellowed, "Oi!" The figure didn't reply, and didn't move. Something about it struck Jack as unnatural. No human could keep that still. It wasn't even breathing. He held his pose in the doorway for a moment, watching it, and then cautiously stepped into the room. As soon as he got the light out from behind the figure, it became clear. The shock and relief caused a laughing fit, and Jack doubled over as he hacked in breaths and drew a shaking hand through his hair. It was just a mannequin. Jack moved up to it and poked the cold porcelain skin as his chuckles gradually subsided. "Jeez, buddy, you've been terrorising my girl for weeks." He pulled his mobile out, took a photo of the figure, and sent it to Cammy with the caption, "Found the creep opposite your window. He's a real dummy." It was a good pun, Jack thought, as he turned towards the window and stared at Cammy's workplace. He could barely see the little cactus she kept at her window. She'd been right, the figure was almost perfectly opposite. He wondered idly if someone had left the mannequin as a prank, or if it had just been abandoned like the other furniture. His phone buzzed with a reply message. "What the hell? Did you actually go there?" Quickly followed by a, "You promised you wouldn't. It's not safe." The phone buzzed a third time. "And that's not the window guy. He doesn't just stand still. Sometimes he paces." Jack frowned at the final message, then drew a sharp breath as a hand landed on his shoulder.